All in Sports Network. We love sports.
It is Wednesday, June 4th, right here on your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns, presented to you by Rogue Sports Network. I'm Tanner Carlson. That is Jake Jimerson, and this is All in Horns. Big weekend that we need to completely recap and go over everything. Jake and I were both at the first Texas UTSA game, and then we're headed back from our guys' trip as we were watching the K-State game transpire, and then got home and then watched the second UTSA game. Also need to recap what happened in softball, as they have booked a trip to the National Championship Series against Texas Tech. We will get into that Texas Tech OU series as well. Just briefly touch on that and just kind of give a recap of both tournaments and how everything is going in general in this episode. I know we've been away Monday, Tuesday, didn't come out with any episodes. We were on vacation. Took us a little bit more time to get back into the swing of things, and also for our future schedule for this week. And I know it is softball national championship. We understand that series is going on. I've had some personal things going on in my life. My availability is up in the air for the remainder of this week. And so we are going to come out with a live reaction for tomorrow's game. On Wednesday night, we'll have a live reaction that will be posted for Thursday. But really anything after that, I'm going to be out of town. I'm going to be out of pocket. Jake's going to be also traveling this upcoming weekend as well. So a lot of moving pieces. We're going to try to make it work, and we're going to try to get you as up-to-date reactions and up-to-date news on the Softball National Championship Series as we possibly can. But again, just be patient with us. I know it's not ideal, but, life things happen. All right, Jake, before we get into all of that, guys trip, golfing, played 2 rounds in the Omni Resort area. Anybody familiar with that area in Round Rock? Beautiful hills and valleys and whatnot. Shout out to my dad who works there, gets a little bit of an employee discount. And so fun weekend with the guys, had some college buddies meet us down there, and shot 2 rounds of golf in 2 days. And I can see why, as a golfer, you would need to be in tip-top physical shape, because I'm actually extremely sore from doing that. And I rode in a golf cart. I did not walk 36 holes.
Yeah, I thought I wouldn't be too sore. Just, been hitting the gym a lot recently in the last month and a half. And I was like, golf's probably not going to make me too sore. You forget that it uses a lot of muscles, that unless you've been playing golf regularly, because you can play golf back-to-back days, 2 rounds a day even, and not get too sore after, if you've been playing a lot of golf. That was my first time swinging a club this year.
Yeah.
I just haven't had time and the weather here has just been raining nonstop. It rained all day today, by the way.
What the guys look like driving home from the course on day 2, both you and Matt, just dead in the car. I thought
the hangover didn't help.
Well,
to be
sure. There was some extracurricular activities the night before that, didn't help the mood and day 2. But no, speaking of that night, we went to the Texas UTSA game since we were kind of in the area. And so we golfed, went to the Texas UTSA game, and then that next morning shot another round of golf, and then came back home and watched the K-State game, and then eventually the UTSA game. That's kind of what the timeline transpired as. Jake, when we were so last week I had mentioned that I kind of gotten into it with UTSA fans on Twitter, or X, the everything happens on X. I sent them a picture of me at the game because they were calling me a t-shirt fan. They responded, dude, they were in our section. They were 2 rows away from us.
As long as it wasn't the one guys that were 10 rows up. It
wasn't those guys. But it is funny that I was kind of beefing with people that were in our section, literally down the row that we were sitting on. And they were just on the further end of it. It wasn't the dude behind us who was super cool, who was
hilarious. Yeah. That dude was, I was just laughing. I was just he's a good chirper.
Great chirper.
He just kept going at it. Really, all the UTSA fans were really good. Fun to be around, just the chirping back and forth, friendly banter. There was really only a couple bad
things.
There was really only 2 bad birdies in our section.
And Jake, you and I, we've seen a lot of Texas sporting events together, and typically just because, again, it's college sports and there's always banter, there's always back and forth between fans. You and I typically get into it with somebody. One of us do, typically you more so than me. But this time around, it really wasn't so much. We were going back and forth, but it was all fun and games. I don't think we really
there
had
was,
any beef with anybody.
and normally there's not anything serious, but I don't know. Maybe I just have a face that looks punchable. I don't know.
You have a punchable face, yes.
Oklahoma thing, I didn't start that. The small UTSA thing we had at the game this weekend, I didn't start that. I just literally was going to get a beer and a corn dog, and they stepped out into the aisle and like shoulder bumped me. And I talked to them all game.
Yeah, no, I know. They weren't even like involved in us. But again, great chirping, good rowdiness, good crowd, good college sports environment, I would say, really from both fan bases. A disappointing way for Texas to end their season, Jake.
Yeah. I mean, the game we were at was a complete choke job, especially when it comes to fielding. The fielding, and I know a lot of people are going to say Jalen Flores, and I get it. He had that game we were at was one of the worst games by a collegiate player I've seen in a big moment, especially a player that you expect great things from. And it just, I don't think either of us felt overly confident about Texas going into the postseason. Also, obviously, neither one of us thought that they would just lose in their own regional.
I had them getting through their regional fairly unscathed, and I thought the Tuesday night game and UTSA during the regular season was an outlier. I knew UTSA was a good program. I didn't think they were just going to dog walk them. In fact, I thought maybe, hey, if they do drop a game against UTSA, I wouldn't be necessarily surprised, but surely they won't lose a double elimination bracket with UTSA in it. Hand up, I underestimated UTSA. I tweeted out before the regionals even started, there's not a single Texas fan concerned about UTSA. Again, that's on me. Hand up on that one, Texas fans. Sorry. I got softball and baseball's postseasons completely wrong. Completely wrong. Now, I'm not saying I thought that softball was going to get kicked out of regionals. In fact, I had them sweeping through regionals. I actually had them getting through Clemson to get to the College World Series. Did I have them in the national championship? By no means, no, I did not.
No, I was even worse. I had them 0-2. You had them 1-2. But for softball, to be fair, I think you could argue that we should just pick against them because every time we start to doubt them, they look their best. It's crazy. It's like every time that, like, I think I picked them to win that OU series or at least win one game thing. You know what? I think they're going to get out there and then they get swept. And, Jake,
you tell me if this is loser talk because I've kind of gone back and forth with it. It's your own region. You shouldn't be put in this own situation. I'm going back to baseball, by the way. I'm taking a step back away from softball. Okay. Sorry. The doubleheader on Sunday. I feel like that's kind of a disadvantage. I know you lost, and maybe it's loser talk, but I hate playing an afternoon game against K-State, turning around 2 hours later and having to playing an elimination game in UTSA.
Here's what I hate is in a normal game that Texas K-State game's a run roll. They would have run rolled them in, I believe, the 7
innings. Yeah.
And that would have cut a lot of, I mean, at that point as a coach, I almost would just be like, go out there and swing the bat 3 times in a row. Let's just get out of this game, regress before the next game. It's just always been like that. So, but it is a huge disadvantage, but that's kind of the don't lose at home in your own regional. I don't want to sound like the OU softball coach who just came out and said the same thing. Now, granted, that's about the Women's College World Series, but I don't know if you saw that, but the OU coach complained about having to play the doubleheader that day, the day that they got eliminated by Tech. It is a valid complaint, but it sure does sound like some sour grapes when you've benefited from that every other year before and didn't say crap about it. And now you're crying about it. Now Texas has benefited that from years past in for the baseball side. But yeah, I don't get, just from how long the regular season is, I don't see why you can't have the postseason get the ample time it needs so that you're playing a normal amount of games.
Hey, and if it's loser talk, it's loser talk. Maybe I'm on the loser talk side of things. You know, I've already gone hand
It
up.
is loser talk, but it can be loser talk and valid, just like the OU softball coach bring it up. It's loser talk, but it is valid.
But you do make a good point, though. It's benefited OU softball for the last 4 years, them getting to a College World Series and winning a national championship for those years.
Yeah, no, it's benefited for them, and there was never a discussion of that. Then They had it this year. They lose for the first time in 5 years, and now it's a big issue. But yeah, I mean, it sucks. That's why you don't lose, and it's always been like that. And but I'm just saying, for as long as the regular season is, and this would be regardless of whether it's benefiting Texas, hurting Texas, whatever. I don't get why the postseason the series can't be an extra day or two so that you're just one game a day for each team.
Honestly, it doesn't even have to be an extra day. Here's what I would do to fix that. You just play that day. So K-State is a win. Then you go in and you play Saturday. And if you need a doubleheader, you play your 2 doubleheaders that day.
But you could argue on the other side that the team that won would get a day off. So, but I could see I would argue you just stretch it another day.
Yeah, you just go
just because maybe the team.
And if you need a doubleheader that Saturday,
because if you're the underdog playing a doubleheader in one day against the favorite, even if you are in the winner's bracket, I think is more of a detriment to you than it is to even though Texas lost the first game, I'm just saying in a hypothetical, that second game you'd be just so much less likely to win if you're that underdog team most of the time. But But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because Texas baseball could not beat UTS. No one in Texas, as far as the major schools go, could beat UTSA this year because they beat A&M as well.
And Jake, the last time Texas won back-to-back games was April 27th on Sunday against Texas A&M, and then April 29th, Tuesday night against Prairie View A&M. The following series that came after that was you got swept by Arkansas, you beat Lamar, you lost game 1 against Florida, won game 2 against Florida, lost game 3 against Florida, won game 1 against Oklahoma, lost game 2 against Oklahoma, won game 3 against Oklahoma, lost to Tennessee, won against Houston Christian, lost against UTSA, won against K-State, lost against UTSA. No back-to-back wins since April 27th, 29th against Texas A&M and Prairie View A&M. You can't string together a couple of wins in the last 2 months of the season. Yeah, you're probably going to have a tough time getting out of regionals, getting out of supers, and getting into the College World Series.
Yeah, and kind of all the weaknesses showed up.
Everything that Texas was doing at the beginning, middle of conference play of like you and I, situationally, they're making big plays. They're not playing great. They're maybe down in the 7th, 8th inning, but they're making the plays when it happens to win the games. Those plays weren't happening anymore.
No, the clutch hitting was gone. The bullpen being able to come in from the starter and really not give up leads or not give up runs, that really went away. The Jared Spencer injury, it just felt like it crippled the staff more than it probably should have in many ways. It kind of goes back to what we talked about even going into the Arkansas series. When you look at that series going in, you're like, Texas #1 team in the country. They are dominated in almost every overall stat by Arkansas.
Yeah.
And the whole conversation around Texas was, better than the sum of their parts. They were way overperforming the sum of the talent that they had, because don't forget, this roster was mostly the same roster from last year. And that just some of the players going on a cold streak. Max Bailu never really getting back to his self.
He was in the roster, but he was in the lineup, but he was never Max Bailu.
The walk-off home run against OU felt like a little bit of like an emotional type home run, and then the consistency was just never there from him after that. Jalen Flores had about the worst possible slump you could ever imagine. The basically the whole back half of the season.
I mean, Jalen Flores,
And on both sides. I
it
mean,
was it
at
was
the
fielding
plate,
and batting. Yep.
yeah, I mean the bunt, the pop fly punt, I mean,
That's
that's just you can't have that mistake. And
bad.
the good thing is Texas baseball, as far as a program, is trending in the absolute right direction. They have the number one recruiting class in the nation. They're going to be returning a ton of talent from this team. There's only a handful of guys who they're for sure going to lose. Even a Max Bailey technically could stay, but I think he's predicted to go in the first round. I would imagine he's gone. We'll do more of a roster update here in a couple weeks when our schedules have slowed down.
Yeah.
We'll put something together, kind of goes, these are the guys, and we'll have a better idea of who's entered the portal, maybe some guys they've brought in by then, because portal madness is already starting. But the future of Texas baseball, the short term and the long term, looks incredible. But it's hard to call the season they just had a success, just because the standard of Texas baseball comes in the postseason. The regular season was great. The regular season was really an A+. There's no other way to say it. I mean, they set records in the SEC. They won the SEC regular season. I count the regular season as an A+, but the postseason is an F.
Yeah. So looking back, Jake, I wanted to ask you this before we move on to softball, because this will be the last thing we talk about with baseball, and then we're strictly going softball here. Okay. So we'll put a bow on baseball for the entire season until softball is completely over. And then once the off seasons take over, we'll probably get back into that baseball talk, like Jake said. But overall, Jake, let's take ourselves back to October. Let's take ourselves back to November, December, where the season's kind of starting to get underway, starting to get that baseball itch a little bit. We're kind of curious as the Schlossnagle effect and what this is going to look like. Was this season a success going and putting yourself back post, Schlossnagle hire, getting the recruits in, getting the transfers in? Where was this team's overall success from where your expectations were at that point to where they are now?
If I had to give it a letter grade, I'd probably give the season as a whole a B- or a B. And I know that's kind of harsh when you consider how good the regular season was, but losing when you host a regional, and losing to a system school as well. Yeah, it really, really hurts. And as granted, the number one overall seed in baseball lost as well, by the way, Vanderbilt. And this was this has already been a crazy.
LSU,
I mean, you have Louisville versus Miami in a super regional. That's the, two teams that weren't hosting a regional. You have Murray State versus Duke, who neither one of those teams were hosting a regional. And then you have, UCLA, who's the 15 hosting UTSA. But yeah, the SEC got destroyed.
Yeah.
In the regionals and this year.
Do you think the SEC was a little overrated this year as a whole?
Yeah. You can't say they weren't.
Yeah.
When you get that many teams hosting a regional and that many teams lose, and your top two teams from your conference lose the regionals they're hosting, there's no other. And Ole Miss loses to Murray State. There's no other way to put it.
You can't even say it was the beating up on each other thing, because throughout the entire season, Jake, whenever you had your one seed, the number one overall team in the country kept losing the next week to the other opponent. And then it was just a rotating door of different teams in the top three really throughout the year. So there was really no dominant team in the SEC. Vanderbilt was probably the one seed because they ended up winning the SEC tournament, or else they wouldn't have even been a one seed in the super regional or in the regionals.
Now, granted, there still could be almost half of the College World Series that is SEC teams, but 3 is the max, because Arkansas and Tennessee are playing each other. LSU hosts West Virginia. LSU barely got out of their region as well.
They had a scary moment.
Tennessee went down to the final game. And that's the thing, is even a lot of these teams that hosted that got through, a lot of them went to the final game. And so it was just kind of one of those years. And so that's why, I'm not going to I saw some people thinking the season was like a D or an F, and I'm like, that's not realistic when you think about the expectations at the start. If you told me at the start of the year Texas was going to make it out a regional, I'd have been like, that's not that surprising to me. Just because they got to continue to kind of rebuild this roster, and a lot of their top talent were freshmen.
But if
And
I had told you that they were going to win the SEC and be the 2 seed in regionals
yes,
and didn't get out of it.
If my expectation was Texas to be a top 3 seed in the nation and then lose at home, it'd be a D or an F. But when you compare it to what expectations were, but just based off the roster not really being a full rebuild from last year and how they were last year, I still think they outperformed most of the expectations. But the postseason, regardless, is still not making out the regional for Texas any year is bad.
Yeah.
But when you combine that with the regular season they had, so like overall grade B minus B, I'm still had fun watching them this season. It's just unfortunate they started playing their worst ball. The injuries caught up to a lot of things that we were saying during the year, just caught up to them at the end, and it kind of bit them in the ass. And but I will say, I think Texas is only going to get better every single year now under Schlossnagle.
All right, let's do it. Softball time. National championship on the line against another rival. It seems like anytime Texas is going to make a national championship in softball, it's going to be against one of their rivals. Not Oklahoma this year, but it will be Texas Tech. Texas Tech knocks off OU. OU lost against who was it? Tennessee? Yeah, lost to Tennessee the first time around in the.
You might have to edit this. That's such a bad miss.
Where are we at? Where are we at?
OU lost to Texas.
Yes.
Dude, like
I have their schedule up right now, 4-2. Yes.
That is they looked like they were going to lose to Tennessee, but they ended up getting the crazy walk-off.
Sorry. Yes.
That's such a bad look for you that I almost feel like we need to scrub that.
No, we're good. We're good. We're moving on. I'll take my lumps. I've been bad this whole baseball softball season, Jake. I've been really bad. So let's just add it to the pile of my predictions and how I think things have turned out. I've not had a good feel for either of these teams. Yes, Texas beats OU for the first time in the College World Series, in their history of the College World Series, 4-2 on Saturday. And that puts Oklahoma in the losers bracket. They have to then go and play Texas Tech, who they lose to. Texas Tech gets the nod to get to the national championship after Texas beats Tennessee 2-0. Texas not taking a single loss in this Women's College World Series is absolutely huge. Winning 3 of their 3 games and getting into the national championship. Low-scoring games, Jake. It was fielding and pitching, which we thought was maybe an issue, but the bats have been opportunistic, beating Florida 3-0, Oklahoma 4-2, and then Tennessee 2-0. And now Texas Tech, who I think, Jake, has probably been one of the more impressive runs in softball.
Yeah, I mean, as a 12 to make this run is incredible. And for Texas, you know, they beat this Texas Tech team twice this year. But that doesn't feel like it really means anything right now because Texas Tech is playing their best ball now. And, you know, one of those runs was a really close 2-1 run. And that was a game where Kennedy was pitching. And so that's probably a better depiction of what this series is going to be like because she's going to be on the mound as much as she can. The second game where they ruled them, she was not pitching. Yeah. So if you can find a way to make her pitch less in the series, that's going to be better for you because she's the story of this series. It feels like it's Texas against the two, you know, what was like $2 million woman who, or maybe it was one, but it was 1 or 2 million.
It was one of the largest NIL deals in softball.
It would have to be for you to be like, no, I don't want a degree from Stanford. I want one from Texas Tech.
Yeah.
That's wild move to education wise,
or almost a walk through the to a national championship with Oklahoma and instead go to Texas Tech.
Yeah. And so, but that for me is the story of this. Now, as far as softball goes, they got to be feeling sky high confidence. You started the number 1 team in the nation. Now you're in a college. You're not expected to lose this time.
No,
When they've
you're
been
a
in it against
favorite in
OU,
this game.
it's been like
Series.
maybe they can win one game, but if they lose the first game, it's for sure over. And even if you win the first game, you're probably still going to lose 2 in a row to them after that. That was
Third time in program history. Texas Tech, I believe, looking for their first softball national championship. Same with Texas. Both of these two teams.
someone will be a new first
Someone-
time national championship for their softball
Now,
program.
Texas has been there more recently, and you've got some carryover. You've got some experience at this level with some of the players on the roster for Texas, whereas Texas Tech, not so much. But again, I don't know how much does that play into this?
I mean, the experience is losing in it. So I mean, I guess they've been in the moment, so maybe a little less nerves, but I
think the
don't
nerves
think
are
that's,
there.
I just don't think that's going to play into it much. I don't think that's necessarily a big advantage for Texas. And I mean, I just think this is going to be, I think a lot of Texas fans are really confident, and I get it. They just rolled through the World Series. You beat Tech twice this year. It's Tech. It's not OU. I get it, but this is going to be with Kennedy on the mound. This is going to be a very close, tight game. So for me, I'm really going to be watching how much can Texas make her pitch, how many pitches per inning. Just trying to battle out some of these at plates just to. And I know in softball they can pitch. It feels like they can pitch forever and pitch every single day.
Again,
But
yeah, the pitching rotation looks much different on the mound.
if you can wear her out and possibly just get in a different pitcher, that would be such.
It's honestly getting into a position where you're putting Texas Tech in situations of getting on base, get a couple singles, get 2 on. And, if you get it out of the inning with 1 run, or even if you leave a couple stranded, extending this and building up confidence of saying, yeah, we can hit on her. And then also maybe that coaching staff and that pitching staff is like, you know what, today's not the day. We're going into the 4th inning. We need to try somebody else, and I think that's where you want to get this Texas Tech pitching staff is, like you said, get them into their depth as much as you possibly can. But that's going to require you getting on base. That's going to require you putting pressure on their fielders. It's going to require a lot from your batters.
Yeah, because make no mistake about it, Candy's the best player in college softball, and it's not particularly close. I was looking at her stats today. Ridiculous. She's a 0.9 ERA on the season. That's about what it is every year in her career. It's actually a tad higher than last year.
Oh, wow.
Teams have a 153 batting average against her. It's also slightly higher than last year. And she also bats 297 and has hit 11 home runs this year.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
Yeah.
And I mean, she's giving up less than 1 run a game, and she's the pitcher's pitch by far the most for them.
Well, she's also, so when she's on the mound, she's allowing, actually, I'm sorry. She's bringing in more runs than she's allowing by herself for Texas Tech on a game-to-game basis.
Yes, essentially.
Yeah.
It's
by herself. She's winning games by her bringing runs in or scoring runs by herself, and then also on the mound preventing the other team from scoring. It's essentially a one-man show in Texas Tech. And I don't mean any disrespect to the rest of the team. It's a good team. You don't get to this point with one player, or else they would have been in it last year. But again, yeah, this is a dominant player who can very well win a game. Maybe you push 2 games, you get him in a position to win game 2 against anybody in the country.
Yeah, I mean, it's what she did against OU, and Texas beat her earlier this year. That was 2-1. That was a 9 innings. That was an extra innings 2-1 win, a walk-off in the bottom of the 9th. So this is not going to be a cakewalk of the series. I feel confident in this softball team because I think they're playing probably the best softball they have all year right now. But we've seen a lot of inconsistency. And so, you've had a little bit of time off now. Can you keep it rolling like you were just playing? And I think for Texas softball, if you win that first game, I feel as close to 100% confident as you can in sports that they will win the series.
Yeah.
But if you lose that first game, I still think they can win it. It's just going to be really tough. So the first game's always key because you don't want to have to win 2 in a row. But you feel like if Texas can win that first one, you'd almost feel like they're for sure gonna win it. And so I feel like that first game is just so important in this series.
Yeah, well, you also are getting your best players playing their best, whether that be a Mac Morgan, Reese Atwood, your Mia Scotts, whatever it is. Ashton Maloney's also stepping up really big, throughout these College World Series, leading off for Texas. And so my thing, Jake, is it's great to see your best players playing at this level when you need them the most. I do think that this is going to be a very low-scoring game or a series, low-scoring series. So, Jake, I'm going to ask you. We're at the 30-minute mark. The game is tonight, 7 o'clock. How do you think this game 1 goes?
It is going to be whatever the over-under is, bet the under.
Yeah.
I have a hard time seeing this being higher scoring than
every game for Texas in this College World Series has been low scoring.
And it's the same for Tech. So I have a hard time seeing this being any more than a 3-2 type game. I think it's going to be really close all the way through, but it's the damned if you do, damned if you don't. I want to pick them, but I also kind of want to doubt them because every time I doubt them,
when we doubt, they do well.
I can't do it. I gotta have a little confidence in them. I think Texas will win this series. I think a lot of people are expecting Texas to win this series 2-0. I do think Tech is going to win a game. I don't think this is going to be just an easy, but I think Texas will win that third game because I think at that point there will have been enough pitches from Kennedy, even if she's starting all 3 games. I don't know what she's capable of. I'm sure she can do it. But at that point, hopefully a little fatigue or something kicks in because I do think not to boil it down Texas Tech to one player, but she is the best player in college softball. One of the best players I've ever seen in the sport.
She plays the most important position and she's their best batter. Like she's the thing. She's the stick that makes the pot stir, whatever that saying is. I don't know what the saying is. I butchered that. But low scoring, Jake.
That was so bad I don't remember what the saying is because that threw me off so bad.
No one's keeping track of it at this point. All right. I'm going to go at least in game 1, Jake, Wednesday night. I'm going to go ahead and give a prediction. I think it's Texas 2-1. I think they win it in extras.
Oh man, so you want full stress again?
I just think that I think game 2. I think Tech's going to win game 2. I think it's going to go 3 games.
Yeah, that. So yeah, I said 2-1 Texas, but I think Texas wins game 1 and then loses 2 and then wins 3.
Yeah,
I could also see it being Tech wins game 1 and then Texas wins the last 2. Just because Kennedy's going to be full force that first game. If they break her in that first game, though, you have to feel very confident about Texas' chances. And we're going to find out soon enough. But it's very exciting because it kind of felt like this softball team. It felt like for a minute they weren't even going to make the World Series, especially in that Clemson series. I mean, it just felt like they were doing everything they could to lose.
Jake,
then it was hard to feel.
I was just thinking, looking back on this softball season of, you lose that series to Tennessee, you bounce back, get a good series win against LSU, but then you just get swept. Don't even look like you're competitive enough to play with a caliber team of Oklahoma, get swept by them. Then you end the season with a Kentucky series sweep, but then you just get the doors blasted off of you in that Texas A&M game in the SEC tournament. And we're just kind of thinking, all right, well, let's see what they do in regionals, see what happens. And then super regionals come around, and it takes extra innings to beat Clemson in a 3-game series. You get it done, and now you're just kind of playing with house money. We said, all right, cool, you made it to the College World Series. Hopefully you can win against Florida and set yourself up for a good position. And then all of a sudden you beat Florida, you beat Oklahoma, and you beat Tennessee, and you're in the national championship. And just all of a sudden we're like, wait, we're the favorites to win this thing now? How did that happen? But yeah, it's just it's the way this season has worked out for them. And like you said, Jake, I think all the confidence in the world for these girls.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited that they made me look stupid. I picked him to go 0-2. And I love whenever I pick against a Texas team, just trying to, put my honest thoughts into it and trying not to be biased. And then they prove me wrong. It's a great feeling because I typically don't pick against Texas when they're good, but when I feel like something's off, I go with it.
You picked against them in women's basketball as well, and you were right about that. I was not. I had them winning the national championship, but I mean,
unfortunately, women's basketball is a little more predictable at times. But
if there's any sport that's predictable, Oklahoma softball is up there.
Yeah, and this, to be fair, this OU softball team not quite as good as the last 4 years, but it doesn't matter. All that matters now is taking care of business against Texas Tech, getting that first national championship in softball history. And by the way, softball recruiting, from what I was reading, going extremely well. Yep. It seems like the future of the program remains very bright. Yep. And so hopefully this is the first of many for Mike White in this Texas softball team.
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Again, tomorrow's episode, we're going to react to tonight's game and then post it for tomorrow at noon. And then, again, whatever happens after that, whether they play their Thursday night game, if they go into Friday, Jake and I are going to do our absolute best to get you those reactions if we can manage it. Again, I'm going to be out of town. I'm going to be with family. There's personal reasons for that. And so, it just is what it is. Jake's getting ready to go on a trip with his wife. And so he'll be probably out of commission majority of next week, maybe. I
did plan for that to be after softball was for sure over. Right. Yeah. And if baseball was in, I was going to figure it out, but tried to plan it as good as possible, but
hey, it is what it is. No worries. And
the sports calendar is year round.
Yeah. Sports calendar is year round. And I'm sure you'll get your daily fix with us, whether it's a 10-minute episode solo dolo by myself or Jake by himself or whatever that looks like. We'll put something up for you, we promise. So without further ado, that is Jake Jimerson. I'm Tanner Carlson. This has been your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns. Remember to please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And with that all being said, ladies and gentlemen, hook 'em.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.